the first match was Big Bill and Brian Cage against FTR. And I swear to God, I said, okay, at the start of this, I'm thinking, can they do it? Because Cage, I think, is hopeless. He looks wonderful, but to be left to his own devices, Big Bill is looking better, except for the name and I shouldn't say looking better. His work is better. He seems like somebody you could do something with, but the name and just what he wears is just horrendous, right? And now that Cage is wearing a mohawk and face paint, he looks even there. That's a hat on that body and that face and that fucking thing, and he's flipping and doing backflips. You can't tell what the fuck his deal is supposed to be. But I said, okay, maybe FTR can do something here. And Dax came out with Dennis's vest on and everything, and they got the FTR chants going on. And Cash hugged his mother in the front row, which I believe is the proper use of a mother. I think a babyface should be allowed to hug their mother before they get in the ring and have the match. We'll come back to mother. And
sounded like Anthony Perkins saying it that way.
Mother! And, then they start having the match, and it was going brilliantly. They're putting the other guy's size and strength over, but Cash has a leapfrog like Buzz Sawyer. And, again, Dax and Cash are just so technically proficient, but also they kept the guys doing simple shit that they could look big and strong in. And then Dax and Cash would double tackle or outmaneuver or whatever and be a little quicker. And they were laying their shit in. And basically, I wrote FTR making this work. It's the best that Cage has ever looked. And the match is making sense. And then, they did the break spot where Big Bill just press slammed Cash and dropped him over the top rope on Dax. And that was a decent break spot. And we were 11 minutes into the show by that point. So I'm invested in this. It's not like we saw 2 minutes of bing, bing, bing and 5 minutes of fucking Massengill ads, right? So when they come back, they're getting heat on Cash on the floor. And then they did the deal where Mom slaps Bill. But in the words of Frank Spaceman Hickey, too cartoon, because she was smiling.
She was having the greatest time.
She was having the greatest time. When her son was getting mauled in front of her, she couldn't contain herself. I wish we could declare a moratorium on that. And, Stu and Helen, it worked because they'd been in the business for 50 years, right? But most of the time, the family... And Michelle, Cody's mom, has done well.
And we've just seen her in action. That's the thing. It's not like seeing a mom in the front row slap a wrestler or something we haven't seen just recently.
This was not revolutionary, nor was it a big match where it had been built up for weeks and there was a grudge and the heels had said bad things about the family. Is because they were close to home. But anyway, having said that, they got some good heat on Cash. I said, Big Bill looks better than ever. The match is making sense. Bill takes a nice bump into the post. Cash German suplexes Cage and fights up and hits a hot tag. And Dax comes in with great punches. Boom, 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 boom. And then they hit the top rope bulldog that the Steiners used to do perfectly.
Yeah, look great.
As they had done this sequence where bang, 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 the comeback, and they shit can Big Bill, and they pick up Cage. Dax picked him up effortlessly, bending over in that big meathead, right? And they hit the bulldog perfect, and the cover, and the people are there. 1, 2, he kicked out. And you can go back and watch. If they had got the 3 count there, the people would have gone absolutely ballistic. And it would have been a great, almost a perfect match. And everything that they needed to do would have been accomplished. but they went on. So at some point, here in the next 10 or 15 seconds, FTR try to go for the spike pile driver on Cage, and he picks Dax up underneath him, catches Cash coming off the ropes with a crossbody, and does the sack of shit throw to the both of them right after the bulldog off the top that he just took. And it's like they started having another match. Yeah, I'm not saying the spot wasn't right, but they could have done it 2 minutes into the fucking match, not right after they nearly decapitated him and he was selling. So then, at that point, Cage suplexed Cash, but Big Bill came back in and goozled Dax and chokeslam and suplexed him. And then they just started doing shit. And it wasn't really as good as the shit they'd been doing, so the crowd lost interest kind of in the match, but instead they were chanting FTR like, yeah, let's get back to what you were doing a minute ago. And then I don't know what happened, because Big Bill set Cash up on the top turnbuckle and then turned around, and Cash had to more or less climb up on his shoulders. But he's on his shoulders, but Dax jumped up from behind and pulled him down, and Cage was on the top rope, and Big Bill went to charge with a double clothesline, but Cash ducked and Dax didn't. But it looked like maybe that Dax was surprised that fucking Big Bill clotheslined him, and because he tatered Dax, and then he turned around and grabbed Cash, tried to grab him by the neck like for a choke slam, but Cash, who had ducked the clothesline, thought that I guess he was going to hit him and sold it like a punch. And I wrote, I don't know what spot they're fucking up here. But Big Bill clotheslined Cash to the floor, and Cage did a dive, which again, they've already completely lost the plot after the Bulldog. And then they started getting a little fucking steam on Cash again, but they shoved the heels together and hit the Shatter Machine on Cage 1, 2, 3. So the finish where they were going to win was on the fucking guy that they bulldogged. Nothing would have changed except the match wouldn't have gone from perfect to what the fuck is going on here if they'd have just done it then. I don't know why they didn't do it then. I don't know why that they thought, even when they were talking it over, that it would have been good to do the things they did after they didn't do the thing they should have done. What do you think, Brian?
I agree with you completely. I thought it was a pretty good match that went too long. Even before it got really sloppy, which it did, my thought was, this is a match unlike the FTR matches against Gin and Juice, for instance. We kind of know who's going to win. There's no question that it's not going to be Big Bill and Brian Cage with Prince Nana winning the tag titles in South Carolina.
Right.
So for that reason, I think it needs to be a good action-packed match, but it doesn't need to be a long match. It doesn't need to be overly competitive. There don't need to be so many near falls when it's guys who are clearly not going to win. Then you're just trying to create something that doesn't need to be there. Brian Cage is an example of someone I want to like, and at times I do. You know, this match had some of the best clotheslines I've seen in a long time. It's such a weird compliment. But Cage and FTR lay them in, and the other guys take them hard and go down, and they look great, and they sound great. You don't really see that too often because you don't see big muscular guys. Cage is wearing face paint. To honor Sting, I guess, because there was a giant scorpion on his pants, too. The heel, honoring Sting, I assume, I don't even know if the commentators ever said that. I think he looks good with the face paint because he looks like a big roided up 80s wrestler, but it shouldn't be happy colors. It should be something dark.
It was very pastel, wasn't it?
Yeah, early Barbarian, early Road Warriors, T-Joe Khan, something like that. Not friendly surfer Sting. You don't want to look like you're welcoming to people if you're the heel.
But you see, you know what? To be honest, that's the kind of 80s throwback I don't really I guess because I had to live through so many Road Warrior impersonators and so many people doing the face paint, because the handful of guys in the 80s, Ultimate Warrior, Road Warriors, Warlord, Barbarian, had success with it. We saw everybody had their face painted. And now it kind of looks like, look, that guy's cosplaying as the Road Warriors.
I mean, it has to be something different. It can't be a direct ripoff, but he came out there again. A scorpion on his trunks and Sting face paint, and he's on the heel team in South Carolina. And I agree about Big Bill. Big Bill looks like he's getting better in the ring. He looks like he's in the best shape I've seen him in. And I'm sure he probably wants to get back to WWE anytime soon. So, should have ended sooner. Good competitive match, but you knew what the outcome was going to be, and was more like a fan-friendly match for the house, I guess.
Well, and I see your point, and I'll raise you a point. Now, I see your point about, FTR should be stronger against a middle card team. But if it was a really great fucking working team, I would give them the creative license to go into more things. But they should have known that they were, going to Las Vegas on that. The longer it went with the greener guys, the more chance they had of something not going right. And again, I think that's, they're trying to be too giving, and they're trying to put together classic finishes to matches that don't need to be classics, and they run off and leave the other teams. And in some cases, not in the gin and juice case, but there was another example. God, who was it? This was probably several months ago now, where they had a really good match going FTR with somebody else, but then they pressed their luck and tried to make it too complicated and ran off and left the other team. I can't remember. But
I can't remember either.
That is something that happens sometimes, because they get enthusiastic.